Married to a Disabled Man in the 70's Chapter 42 to Chapter 51. The three children returned home in low spirits and successfully attracted the attention of the family. Sun Fong smiled and said, "Oh, what's wrong? Don't you like to go to your aunt's house the most?" De Bao covered his mouth and didn't dare to speak. He lowered his head and hid to the side. Bao looked at his older brother and shook his head while biting his finger. Xiaobao looked at his two older brothers and didn't dare to speak. However, his lively big eyes were blinking. It was really strange. Xianxia smiled and said, "Is your aunt not at home? Li Xiu was pregnant not long ago, and she loved children again." She hugged her son and whispered, "Bao, tell Mom, what's wrong? Did your aunt scold you?" Bao nodded hesitantly and buried his head in his mother's arms again, unwilling to speak. Sun Fong was even more curious. Now that the three children were all married and successful, as an elder, her life was much more comfortable than the old ladies in the village. Therefore, she was more generous and childish at the same time. She smiled and took out a candy from the jar beside her and coaxed, "Xiaobao, come and tell Grandma, did your aunt bully you?" Xiaobao saw the fruit candy and immediately drooled. His small brain couldn't store too many things, but he had a deep impression of the candy. He immediately nodded and opened his mouth to speak. De Bao, who was hiding at the side, panicked and said, "Xiaobao, don't say it." However, it was too late. Xiaobao said in a childish voice, "Aunt is embarrassed." Everyone was stunned and then burst into laughter. Li Xiu also took a candy and teased her son, "Bao, why do you think your aunt is embarrassed?" Bao was more tolerant than Xiaobao. After hesitating for a moment, De Bao quickly said, "Don't say it. Aunt will be sad." Candy, so much candy. Li Xiu added more candy and even stuffed one directly into Bao's mouth. The 3-year-old child couldn't bear it and said decisively, "Aunt is embarrassed, I want hugs and kisses." "Yes, kiss kiss." Xiaobao nodded and ate the tang fruit with a satisfied expression. De Bao looked at his two younger brothers who betrayed their aunt one after another. He collapsed and covered his face. "Be careful, aunt won't play with you anymore." "Candy, brother, have a candy." Bao smiled flatteringly and skipped over a fruit candy. De Bao looked like he was in a difficult position, but he still accepted it honestly. The adults who completely understood what the two children said. "Ha ha ha. Li Xiu was a little envious. Little sister and brother-in-law's relationship is pretty good." The corner of Sun Fong's mouth twitched, and her old face was a little embarrassed. However, she noticed something and chose to ask De Bao, "De Bao, was it your uncle who was hugging your aunt? Is your uncle's hand okay?" De Bao shook his head. "Uncle carried her with one hand." Sun Fong, "Oh, my son-in-law's stamina is really good." However, her son-in-law's hand was still injured. This was the disadvantage of young people living alone. He didn't have a sense of propriety. She was worried and held her forehead. Although she had already taught the three children a lesson, Su Jiaojiao still felt very embarrassed and didn't dare to go out. However, after dinner, Sun Fong ran over. "Jiaojiao, I know you're a married couple and have a good relationship. However, your husband's arm was injured. If he doesn't take care of it, what if there are sequelae?" Sun Fong looked at her daughter with embarrassment. In fact, she didn't want to come. Her mentality was different from Su Jingyang's. She felt that this was a good thing. Besides, her daughter was smart and knew what to do. However, Su Jingyang was worried. When the wild boar came, he was also there. Although he didn't go over, he saw Song Qinghan's miserable state clearly. He was afraid that his daughter would be naughty and mischievous. Qinghan was an honest young man who didn't know how to say anything when he was bullied. Therefore, he urged Sun Fong to come over and talk to his daughter, telling her not to go overboard. Su Jiaojiao covered her face in shame. I know. I won't make trouble in the future." It was too shameful. Next time, she would eat candy in front of the three children. She would slander them. When Sun Fong saw this, she smiled and said, "Sigh, my little daughter has grown up." Su Jiaojiao continued to cover her face and refused to look up. Sun Fong couldn't help but laugh. She shook her head and left. After leaving the room, she saw her son-in-law sitting in the courtyard. Sun Fong reminded him, "Jiaojiao is young and a little willful. I hope you can pamper her, but don't let her do whatever she wants. Recuperate well. Don't try to have fun like this. Do you understand? Song Qinghan stood up and nodded with a straight face. His gentle eyes had a hint of unnatural shyness. Mom, I know. I know what to do. Jiao Jiao is very sensible. Sun Feng's smile deepened. It's good that you know what to do. I'll go back first. Song Qinghan walked her 2 steps. After she left, he closed the courtyard door and came back. As soon as he entered the room, he saw that the person on the bed had already crawled under the quilt. The weather in October was a little cold. Even though Su Jiaojiao was hiding under the blanket, she was still sweating profusely. When she sensed that someone had come in, she broke down and lifted the blanket. Her flushed little face was still clear in the dim room. Song Qinghan's good eyesight could see her sparkling eyes and her red lips. A smile spread from the bottom of his heart. He went over and wiped her sweat. It's okay. It's okay. Ouch! Su Jiaojiao bit his chest. Song Qinghan's body stiffened. He couldn't help but ask. Jiao Jiao, are you feeling better? Zhang Ziqing fainted after being electrocuted. When he woke up, the sky was already dark. There was a bitter taste on the tip of his tongue. He spat out some saliva and felt a little better. However, he was chilled by the scene. As a young man in his 20s who didn't even have the strength to truss a chicken, Zhang Ziqing was frightened by the scene. His legs were weak as he walked back. Along the way, he was scared that a female ghost would come out of the darkness and bite him. Finally, when he reached home safely, he felt relieved. However, when his mother saw him coming back, she nervously checked him, afraid that he was injured. Zhang Ziqing suddenly felt a wave of repulsion. His throat moved, and he felt nauseous. His stomach even rolled. Where have you been? You're covered in dust. His mother wiped the dust on his face with heartache. Zhang Ziqing endured it for a while. However, when his mother came closer, the nausea grew stronger. He suddenly pushed her away and ran to the bathroom. Wretch, his mother followed him and nagged, "Oh my God, did you eat something bad?" Zhang Ziqing shook his head. No. He was quite weak. He vomited for a while, but there wasn't much left in his stomach. He could only vomit acid. It started a vicious cycle. Even the smell in the bathroom made him feel uncomfortable, although it wasn't as strong as before. He guessed that he really had a cold stomach. However, Zhang Ziqing didn't dare to tell his mother about what had happened today. Not to mention that he had done something bad first, even the inexplicable fainting was a bit strange. Seeing that he wasn't feeling well, his mother didn't dare to say anything. She served him good food and drinks. The next day, Zhang Ziqing, who had been feeling uncomfortable all night, went to work with a dark face. On the way, he met a beautiful female comrade. This person was his colleague. The two of them were in an ambiguous period. The two of them went the same way and often went out together. They brought breakfast for each other. Zhang Ziqing's dark face finally eased. He smiled and walked forward. Morning. Morning. The girl pursed her lips and smiled. She handed over the soy milk in her hand. You don't look good. Did you not sleep well? Zhang Ziqing frowned. I seem to have caught a cold yesterday. I vomited. My stomach felt uncomfortable all night. When he said the last few words, the two of them got closer. He could smell the faint fragrance of the girl's body. Holding the warm soy milk in his hand, Zhang Ziqing suddenly felt that the nausea was getting stronger. The girl saw that he suddenly stuttered. She hesitated and reached out to touch his forehead to see if he had a fever. However, just as she touched him, Zhang Ziqing's face changed. He pushed her away and ran to the side of the road. Wretch, the girl's face froze. She looked at the back of the vomiting figure in shock. Then, her face turned green. She really liked Zhang Ziqing. He was good-looking, had a good job, and was good at dealing with people. He had a good relationship with the leaders. His future was good. Who knew that he would have such a reaction? It should be a misunderstanding. The girl's mouth twitched. She took small steps closer and said softly, Are you still not feeling well? Do you want to go to the hospital to have a checkup? Before she could finish her words, there was another heart-wrenching retch. Zhang Ziqing looked at the person who was approaching and realized something. He would feel nauseous as long as he smelled the girl. He walked away silently. The smell in the air dissipated. Zhang Ziqing breathed a sigh of relief. Seeing the girl standing there helplessly, he steeled his heart and walked closer. Sorry, I was not feeling well just now. Wretch. It was the third time. The girl's face turned green. She said coldly, I'll go to work first. Then, she turned and left. Zhang Ziqing looked at her back in confusion. Then, he looked at himself and panicked. What was going on? Why did he vomit when he got close to her? The girl walked away. Zhang Ziqing felt comfortable all over. He had really seen a ghost. He walked quickly to the office with an ugly face. Most of the people in the office were women, except for him and another man. However, this also made him popular in the office. A few of the sisters liked to talk to him. It was the same today. Zhang Ziqing was surrounded by two sisters. You don't look well. Do you want to go to the hospital for a checkup? Don't hurt yourself too much. Zhang Ziqing's mouth twitched. He wanted to tease them like before. However, he had just opened his mouth when his stomach started to churn again. He successfully pushed the two women away and rushed out. Wretch, the two innocent female colleagues? 3 days later, Zhang Ziqing, who had vomited so much that his stomach was convulsing, successfully lay in the hospital. Mother Zhang covered her face and cried. She hid at the door and did not dare to go in. She could only let her husband go in to take care of her son. What do you think is going on? Is he really possessed? Mother Zhang lowered her voice when she said the last few words. She felt cold all over. Her son came home late that day. Was he really possessed? Otherwise, why would he vomit when he got close to a woman? Even children would not vomit as long as they were of the opposite sex. This was unbelievable. Zhang Ziqing shook his head with a pale face. No, it's impossible. How was this possible? They were going to break the 4th grade. He was the one who reported Grandpa Ji Xian back then. When he thought of Ji Xian, Zhang Ziqing remembered that he had slept in the wilderness for a few hours that day. He felt a chill down his spine. His face turned even paler. His hands and feet were cold. Did something really happen back then? ***********. On the other side, Su Jiaojiao was thinking about what to wear for Song Qinghan. As a retired soldier, Song Qinghan was still a hero. He had single-handedly challenged a wild boar and got injured while protecting the villagers. This incident had been reported by Wang Jianya. There was a commendation ceremony in October, 3 days after National Day. Other than Song Qinghan, there were many other outstanding citizens. Su Jiaojiao realized that the clothes he usually wore were too plain. He did not have the best Chinese tunic suit of this era. Therefore, she hurriedly asked her 2 sisters-in-law and Sun Fang to help make one. The 2 of them went to town to buy shoes and shaved his hair. Although he did not mind the hairstyle, Su Jiaojiao did mind him walking out like this. At this time, the clothes had just been made. Su Jiaojiao asked him to try it on. There were clothes and pants. The handsome young man looked even more handsome in the new clothes. His shoulders were wide and his legs were long. Song Qinghan's face was a little unnatural. He stood with his back straight and let his wife size him up. His eyes shone brightly, hiding his true thoughts. His lips moved, but he was too embarrassed to say it out loud. He wanted to ask Jiaojiao if he looked good in this. Aren't the pants a little too big? Su Jiaojiao looked up and down with her big round eyes. Her eyes fell on his trousers, and she asked suspiciously. Naturally, she stretched her hand to the waist of his trousers and pulled it, wanting to see how big it was. Unexpectedly, as soon as her fair fingers tugged at the fabric, she heard a muffled rip sound. Su Jiaojiao was stunned for a moment. She quickly looked down and checked with both hands. The black pants were fine. It was fine. There was a bump in front of her eyes. She looked up awkwardly and saw Song Qinghan's red face. Their eyes met. The young man shyly looked down, pinched the corner of his shirt, and muttered, maybe. I've put on weight. As the ancients said, a night of sex was worth 1,000 pieces of gold. Song Qinghan felt that the ancients did not lie to him. After a night, he felt refreshed and relaxed about what had happened. Previously, no matter how good he thought it was, no matter how magnanimous and carefree he was, he could not hide the gloominess in his heart. After all, the child of the couple who had ruined his life was spoiled by his biological parents. It was normal for him to feel upset. But now, he really did not feel anything. His heart was filled with sweetness and Su Jiaojiao. Jiaojiao had cried last night, and her eyes were probably swollen today. He had to cook 2 eggs for her. Also, he had to give her some essential oil that she had bought last time. After she took a shower, he would massage her with the essential oil. While doing all this, Song Qinghan still had a smile on his face. That smile was different from a normal smile. It carried a kind of sensual sweetness. Anyone who saw it would feel their teeth ache. Su Jiaojiao woke up an hour later than Song Qinghan. She had only just groaned when she was immediately carried up. The man's gentle voice whispered in her ear, "Jiaojiao, I boiled some hot water for you. Let's go take a shower first." Su Jiaojiao lazily stretched out her arm. The moment she moved, she felt her arm go limp. Thinking about what her arm had done yesterday, she felt a wave of anger and glared at the person in front of her. Song Qinghan smiled fawningly and quickly carried her. While the two of them were slowly doing their own things, the village was constantly noisy. They were at the edge of the village. Although they could hear the noise, they did not know what it was about. But they could guess that it was probably the Song family who had made a move. By the time the two of them were full and everything was done, the curtains had already fallen. Sun Feng hurriedly ran over with her family to see them. Seeing that the two of them were still sitting properly, she was suddenly angry. "I've been busy, but the two of you are not worried at all? What's going on? Why did the Song family suddenly become child traffickers?" Sun Feng asked her daughter. Zhang Qian and the others were also very anxious. They wanted nothing more than to shake her shoulders and find out the truth. Su Jiaojiao explained with a smile, "Qinghan is not their son. They switched him. Now that Qinghan's biological parents are here, the people who did this will naturally be punished. Switching someone else's child is illegal." Sun Feng listened in a daze, as if she was listening to a heavenly book. Everyone else's jaws dropped in disbelief. Su Jianhua whispered, "Sis, is this true? Why does it look the same?" Su Jiaojiao shrugged helplessly. "That's how it is. We only found out the truth yesterday." After saying that, Sun Feng knocked on her head. "If you knew yesterday, why didn't you tell Mom?" Su Jiaojiao covered her head guiltily and said with a bitter face, "Qinghan was in a bad mood yesterday. Did I forget? Besides, it's not a big deal. Other than the fact that his biological parents changed, nothing else has changed." "Sun Feng, everyone in the Su family, Miss, is it really okay for you to be so calm?" They looked at Song Qinghan and thought that he would have a different expression. However, they did not expect him to be the same as Su Jiaojiao. He smiled faintly and calmly, just like before. When he saw them looking over, he said gently, "Jiaojiao is right. Nothing has changed. Naturally, it's not a big deal." They were even more speechless. However, their hearts also calmed down strangely. It was not because of anything else, but because they saw that the person involved was so calm. There was no point in saying anything else. Besides, just like Su Jiaojiao said, nothing would change. The two of them were from a small family. Their child had grown up. He was 22 years old, not 12 years old. Even if his biological parents changed, nothing would change. Su Jiaojiao's in-laws would not oppress her. In Song Qinghan's heart, he was definitely closer to his wife, whom he had spent more time with. However, even though they thought so, as their elders, Sun Feng and Su Jianhua still seriously asked for Song Qinghan's opinion. Sun Feng said, "What do you plan to do in the future? I saw the couple who came today. They seem to be very well off. One look and I can tell that they are capable. If you go back, you won't have to work in this field anymore." Song Qinghan nodded. "I'm not sure yet. When the time comes, I'll make a decision based on the situation." Sun Feng was puzzled. "You're such a silly child. No matter what happens, it won't stop you from going back." you'll definitely have a good life if you go back. Zhang Qian added, brother-in-law, they're doing you wrong now. If you go back, you'll definitely be pampered. Who knows, they might even find you a job in the city. Su Jiaojiao interrupted. They have a son. Although he's their son, he's been with them for more than 20 years. Mom, if I were adopted, would you be willing to send me back? Sun Fang was about to confidently say that of course she would send her back. However, when she looked at her daughter, she could not bring herself to say it. She hesitated and said, that's different, that's why we have to wait and see. Anyway, we're not begging anyone, so there's nothing to be afraid of. Su Jiaojiao solved the problem with a smile. They did not ask any more questions and changed the topic. In addition to the Su family, other people in the village who heard about this matter also came. For a time, there was an endless stream of guests. Su Jiaojiao simply asked the Su family to stay for dinner and help deal with other curious people. She pulled Song Qinghan out to hide and wander around happily. As soon as they went out and walked a few steps, the two met a high-spirited Ji Xian. With his short hair and handsome facial features, he looked more and more like a good-looking teenager. Seeing them, Ji Xian's eyes lit up. He ran over and asked, is this true? Su Jiaojia did not need to be told. Song Qinghan silently walked to the side and let the two girls talk. She nodded and said, it's true. Ji Xian smiled. That's a good thing. In the future, they won't be able to say that they're your in-laws. Su Jiaojiao also nodded happily. The biggest benefit was actually getting rid of the Song family's parents. As for the other benefits, it was just icing on the cake. Ji Xian asked again, your family will probably be very busy these 2 days. Why don't you suspend your business? Su Jiaojiao happened to have this idea. I'll stop here for a while, but I might not stop. Why don't you look for someone else and see if you can cooperate? Who? Ji Xian subconsciously asked. She was not comfortable with the people in the village, so she really could not find a suitable person. Su Jiaojia whispered, I've seen Shishu go to town several times before. He might also be doing this. Why don't you ask him? Okay, I'll try. Because Song Yuan's future was still uncertain, this was human nature. However, Su Jiaojia did not want Song Qinghan to suffer for the sake of his parents whom he had never interacted with. Therefore, she had always told him to follow his heart. In the end, the Song family couple came over every few days and sent all kinds of good things to them, afraid that there would not be enough for them to eat. After they came, they did not stay for long. They just chatted with them. The situation was special, so Song Qinghan did not have to go to work for the time being. The couple were very honest people. They were very enthusiastic about Song Qinghan. After a few days, they also got along well. Song Qinghan's expression was obviously a lot more relaxed. Su Jiaojia did not stop them. It was a good thing to have 2 more people who loved him. In addition to the couple, the other uncles and cousins of the Song family came over. There were also people from the Ji family. Naturally, Xueshi Ji, who she had met before, was also among them. These people were very enthusiastic. After a visit, their small home was filled with gifts. The originally empty room was now filled with all kinds of gift boxes. It was like a small warehouse. Su Jiaojiao felt that Song Qinghan should be very happy at this time, right? This person was very happy every day. Even if his expression did not change much, as the person who slept next to him, she could still feel that his body was brimming with joy. This joy also turned into motivation at night to torment her. As for Song Yuan, for some reason, the 2 of them had never seen him. The court session was held 7 days later. Song Qinghan and Su Jiaojiao appeared in court. Song Qinghan was considered a witness. In court, he accused the 2 of ignoring him. Su Jiaojiao sat in the court. Danyou and other people from the village were also present as witnesses. Everyone's statements were the same. They were all accusing the Song family's parents. The Song family's parents were in the defendant's seat. Their faces were pale and dark. It was as if their faces had changed. They looked at Song Qinghan with eyes full of hatred. When the final judgment was handed down, Mrs. Song heard the decisive punishment and broke down. She shouted, "You heartless person. I shouldn't have kept you alive." "Silence," the judge said with a sullen face. Mrs. Song wanted to make a scene, but her mouth was covered and she was dragged away. Her eyes became more and more frightened. In the past few days in prison, she did not enjoy life. She finally knew what fear was. She used to be undisciplined and out of control. Whenever she encountered something, she would sit on the ground and curse on the streets. The situation where she cursed until others did not dare to go against her tit for tat never happened again. She was locked in prison. The invisible torture and fear were about to corrode her. However, before she was dragged out, Mrs. Song took one last look at Song Qinghan. The hatred in her eyes was about to spread. She really regretted not strangling him to death. She was too timid. At that time, every family's daughter married early. She had a bad reputation. Everyone in the village knew that she was a shrew. Therefore, no one wanted to marry her. It was not until she met the poor Mr. Song when she was 18 that they got married. After getting married, her tough living habits made the family live a good life, which was also quite good. It was a pity that she did not have a child. In this era, there were no contraceptives. How could she not have a child? It could only be that there was something wrong with their bodies. Later, when they went for a checkup and found that Mr. Song's body was fine, it was her. Mrs. Song became more and more afraid and anxious. As she entered the age of 30, she almost bought a child to attract a child. In the end, when she was 32, she became pregnant. This could be her only child. The barefoot doctor said so himself. Therefore, she took good care of herself and used all the family's money to go to the city hospital to give birth. She was afraid that there would be an accident. Who knew that the child was not good enough? When she was born, she looked fine. Because she ate so much, she gained weight. However, in reality, she had a heart disease. Her face was blue and she looked like she could die at any time. When the nurses saw the child, they muttered that they could not raise it. At that time, Mrs. Song was still very smart. She immediately understood what the nurses meant. The child she gave birth to was not in good health, they could not afford to raise such a child. This could be her only child. However, Mrs. Song could not let herself have such a child. She wanted a healthy child. Coincidentally, she was in the same delivery room as Song Yunxian. The woman who had been accompanying her husband for half a month was suddenly called away. The woman, who was not due to give birth yet, went out for a walk and was bumped by a child. She went into labor early and gave birth before Song Yunxian. The two of them gave birth at the same time. They happened to be in the delivery room next door. The woman fainted after giving birth and did not have time to pay attention to anything else. However, Mrs. Song was awake the entire time. After listening to the nurse's words, she was sent to the ward with her. Looking at the healthy boy, she had an idea. Newborn children all looked similar. Moreover, both families had the surname Song, so Mrs. Song's delivery went smoothly. They were in the same room. Therefore, before the woman woke up, she ruthlessly swapped the child. Mr. Song was an accomplice. In order not to be exposed, the two of them left immediately after swapping the child. Mrs. Song was strong. She endured the pain after giving birth and went back. In that era, the flow of information was even more limited than in the 1970s. Especially since no one would think that someone would do such a thing. Moreover, the two families were the only ones in the ward. When Jiyu woke up and saw the boy sleeping beside her dying, she was very sad. However, she did not suspect anything. The nurse who gave birth and the nurse who took care of the child were not the same. It was too short, so they did not notice anything wrong. Perhaps someone did but did not dare to say anything. The matter was buried just like that, and no one knew about it. A few years ago, Mama Song was really good to this child. From the name, it was obvious that Mama Song had secretly found a fortune teller to calculate the child's name. However, when Song Qinghan was about 4 years old, she became pregnant again. This time, she went to the hospital for a checkup in advance. A few months later, the checkup revealed that it was a healthy boy. At this moment, Mama Song looked at Song Qinghan as a superfluous piece of trash. But she didn't dare to kill him, so she could only treat him as if he didn't exist. She also felt stifled. She had raised him for so many years and spent so much money on him, yet she still felt guilty about what she had done in the past. With all these emotions mixed together, Mama Song Qinghan's attitude towards Song Qinghan was, she wished he was dead, but she didn't dare to let him die. They had lived like this for so many years, safe and sound. Mama Song never dreamed that everything they had done would be exposed at this time. Please remember to collect the website or remember the website. Website, no burglaries, no burglaries, no burglaries, no burglaries. The trial ended, and the verdict was out. Both of them deserved it. Jia followed her husband with red eyes and a satisfied expression. Behind them were Su Jiaojiao, Song Qinghan, and some of the Song family and Ji family's relatives. They all looked very good. Song Huijin felt that he had vented his anger and was in a good mood. However, not long after they walked out, they saw a young man standing at the bottom of the stairs at the entrance of the court. He was looking at them with red eyes. The Song family couple's faces stiffened, and their expressions became complicated at the same time. Everyone also went downstairs and stood in one place. Shaoan. Jia called out softly. She knew that this matter had nothing to do with Song Yuan, but they could no longer live without any grudges like before. If it was just a misunderstanding, it would be fine. They could dote on both children. However, this was not a misunderstanding. They did it on purpose, they even abused the children after the switch. Song Huijin opened his mouth, but he did not know what to say. Previously, he was more resentful of this child for not becoming a man. He himself was a talented person and did everything well. He managed such a large factory alone and still managed it in an orderly manner. For 3 consecutive years, he had been awarded the title of Outstanding Factory. However, this son of his brought him mostly trouble. When he was young, he worried about his health. Later, he worried about his bad friends. However, he did not dare to say that his son had a heart disease. Then, he looked at Song Qinghan. He had suffered so much, but he was still much better than him. Sometimes, he had to admit that genes were very important. Song Yuan had been arranged by his parents to be sent to his relative's house. He did not know what had happened until his relative's attitude changed. Only then did he know that he was the one who had taken over the magpie's nest from his bad friends. His biological parents were about to be sentenced. Song Yuan knew very well that he could not leave the Song family. Otherwise, his life would be over. He hated his biological parents for not being decisive enough. He also hated Xue Shiji for exposing this matter. He hated his adoptive parents for not showing him any mercy. But at this moment, he suddenly became smart. He understood that he couldn't do anything. He had to be obedient and stay in the Song family. Now that Song Yuan had finally arrived, he wanted them to confirm in front of everyone that they would not chase him out. He didn't know anything else, but this couple did love him dearly. Their love for more than 20 years wasn't in vain. Now, he needed to use the trick of injuring himself to gain their confidence. Song Yuan looked at the 2 people who wanted to say something but stopped. His heart inexplicably skipped a beat. He still didn't know how infuriating it was for his biological parents to be exposed in court. He didn't even know how ear-piercing the voices left in the courtroom were. He thought that things weren't that bad, but who knew that things seemed to be a little different from what he had expected. Song Yuan forced a smile. His pale and ordinary face was filled with fear and bitterness. Dad, Mom, his voice was weak and feeble, as if he had been ill for a long time and his foundation was not good. Jia's heart immediately ached and he asked, "Is your heart hurting again?" Song Yuan had just nodded when he immediately shook his head. "I'm fine." Song Yuan had heart disease, but it wasn't too serious. After all these years of treatment, as long as he recuperated well, he would have no problem running and jumping occasionally. However, at this time, he had to make their hearts ache. Sure enough, as soon as he finished speaking, Jia's heart ached even more. He went forward to support him. "Child, if you're feeling unwell, just say it directly. Didn't you come directly like this before?" Song Yuan looked at him nervously and muttered, "Because I want you to feel sorry for me. That way, you won't bear to chase me out." As soon as he said this, everyone was stunned. Jia also thought that he had heard wrongly and looked at Song Yuan in surprise. The person who said this was stunned for a moment before he explained, I was lying to you. My heart is very good. I never feel uncomfortable if I don't do strenuous exercise. Then before, you. Jia subconsciously thought of how he had always said that his heart hurt. Song Yuan's expression became more and more frightened, but he couldn't help but say, wasn't that to stop you from nagging me? It's so annoying. It's not like your family doesn't have money. You're always reluctant to give me any money. You must have suspected that I'm not your biological son. You want to leave all the money to your biological son, right? Song Yuan. Song Huijin roared with an ashen face. Jia's expression was also very ugly. He put down his hand and looked at him as if he was a stranger. The people from the Song and Ji families shook their heads. Eldest uncle Song said in a low voice, third brother, Qing Han is your biological son. Don't throw away the watermelon and pick up the sesame seed. Indeed, dragons give birth to dragons and phoenixes give birth to phoenixes. The son of a mouse can dig holes. Ji Sueki, who had always hated Song Yuan, sneered. As a girl from the Ji family, she was also the target of Song Yuan's disdain. At this time, everyone knew that something was wrong with him. Even a fool wouldn't say something like that. However, they didn't pursue the matter. Instead, they stared at his words and felt even more disgusted with him. Song Yuan felt that he might have been possessed. His legs felt weak and he wanted to run away. However, just as he turned around, he heard Ji Sueki's words. He immediately said angrily, you're just a poor person who always comes to ask for money. What right do you have to talk about me? No matter what, I was raised by the Song family. They definitely wouldn't be willing to give up on our many years of relationship. Bullsh *T. Jia scolded. He gritted his teeth and said, get out of here. You're not a member of our family. In the future, go find your biological mother. Song Yuan looked at her hatefully. His eyes were full of anger. He was about to open his mouth to say something, but he quickly covered his mouth and ran away in fear. The Song family couple looked at his back with dark faces. They didn't know what to say for a moment. After a long time, the two of them came back to their senses. They looked at the people around them and said dryly, sorry, everyone, we've made a fool of ourselves. We're all family. Why are you saying that? The Song family's second aunt waved her hand. Seeing that Jia's expression wasn't good, she went over to hold her hand and said, now that the child is back, and he even brought his wife along, having a good meal as a family is better than anything else. Jia's expression improved a little. He pulled out an ugly smile and said, second sister-in-law, you're right. Song Huijin also smiled and said, eldest brother, second brother, eldest sister-in-law, second sister-in-law. Today is a good day. These two bad people have been brought to justice. We should celebrate. My treat. Shall we eat together? Sure. The others didn't stand on ceremony and nodded with a smile. Su Jiaojiao secretly watched the commotion. She was rolling around with laughter in her heart. Discussing the truth card with the matchmaker system was really useful. She was actually quite curious about what kind of person Song Yuan was. She was also a little worried about whether he was as scheming as the characters in The Real and Fake Rich Daughters. Who knew that using the truth card would really make her watch a good show? Fortunately, she had this. The genes of the Song family's two people were really strong. They clearly hadn't taught him for a day, but Song Yuan and Song Qingshan were the same inside. Thinking about it this way, it was actually understandable. Both of them were spoiled by their parents. One had a heart condition, so his family and friends were all obedient to him. The other really couldn't bear to blame him. Under such circumstances, once a bad sign appeared, it could completely grow into a towering tree and shape a person's character. Her smile was too obvious. Song Qinghan silently glanced at her and secretly pinched her hand to remind her. Su Jiajia's smile stiffened slightly. She blinked innocently and gave him a coquettish look. Song Qinghan's throat moved slightly, and he smiled helplessly. What exactly was going on? Everyone had their guesses. Perhaps Song Yuan was really possessed, but they couldn't say it, especially in front of the courthouse. They could only pretend that they didn't know and pretend that he was a normal person. What he said was the truth in his heart, even if he said it involuntarily, and it was extremely terrifying. However, because of this, the Song family's parents were indeed a little disheartened. The originally prepared arrangements were given up after hesitating for a long time. They heard that Song Huijin later went to look for Song Yuan. When he came back, he told Song Qinghan that he would never appear in front of them again. As for the future, they had raised Song Yuan for so long. The rest was not under their control. As for the Song family's 3 members, they were all in prison. How he lived in the future had nothing to do with them. However, Song Qinghan didn't care about this matter. Instead, he wanted to go home. There were only the 2 of them at home. They could do whatever they wanted. However, here, there were a bunch of people. Even if they wanted to hold hands, they had to hide it under their clothes. Otherwise, if they were seen, they would be seen as hooligans. This was really a grievance. After the trial, everything was settled. Su Jiaojiao and Song Qinghan returned to the village first. Regardless of whether they lived in the city in the future or not, it wasn't really settled yet. The real thing was only settled after Song Yuan left the Song family completely. If Song Yuan didn't leave completely, then they might just be ordinary relatives. However, their return immediately caused a stir in the village. Wave after wave of people came to watch the show. They curiously asked about what they had seen in the city and how the matter was settled. When they found out about the punishment of the Song family's parents, many people patted their chests in fear. An old lady who was very mean to her granddaughter frowned and said, "How is that possible? They didn't kill anyone. They just changed the child. Didn't they grow up well?" For an old lady who had never been educated and was ignorant of the law, the most important criterion was the relationship between people. However, after hearing her words, many people shook their heads and said, "That's not what you said. They broke the law. Isn't that right, nephew Qinghan?" Song Qinghan nodded and said patiently, "Everyone is born as an individual. When they stole me back then, it was the same as stealing a child. The law doesn't care about that. They only know that they are human traffickers. Things like the ancient times aren't popular now. People can't be bought or sold. Human traffickers have to go to jail. Yes, human traffickers. Serves them right. They stole someone's child and didn't even treat her well. I wonder if they have nightmares at night?" The old lady pursed her lips guiltily and waved her hand unhappily. "You're just scaring me." After muttering this sentence, the old lady ran away. An auntie said hesitantly, "The year before last, their eldest daughter said that she fell into the river and drowned. She hasn't been seen since. Could she have been sold?" "That's possible." The eldest daughter was very obedient. She took care of her 2 younger brothers and had to cut grass to feed the pigs every day. She didn't eat much and looked sallow and emaciated. The year before last, the eldest daughter seemed to be around 10 years old. Everyone sighed. Their high spirits from just now fell by a lot. What was surprising was that Song Qinghan's parents were punished. Because they were villagers of Peach Blossom Village, the matter became very big in the surrounding area. Many people knew that children couldn't be taken away casually and that children couldn't be bought or sold. As more and more people knew about it, many people from the county's Public Security Bureau came to report the case every day. Many girls who had been sold by their families chose to report the case. The surrounding brigades became lively for a while. Please remember to collect the website or remember the website. Website, no burglaries, no burglaries, no burglaries, no burglaries. Song Huijin and Jia were very open-minded parents. Of course, it could also be because they were not close to Song Qinghan and felt guilty. Therefore, they could not treat their child like ordinary parents. Both of them felt guilty for not being able to stay by his side. If it were not for the fact that it was not due yet, they would have relaxed. Who would have known that there would be an accident at that time, and the child would be swapped? In the 70s, Song Huijin's status as the director of a brick factory was still very powerful. After all, private transactions were not allowed at that time. Su Jiaojiao was a person who was easily satisfied and did not have much ambition. Therefore, she did not go out of her way to meet other people. However, when she stood in front of this beautiful house that could be called a small villa, she was still surprised. This was definitely a wealthy family. Although she had seen the Song family before, and they were all dressed in suits and leather shoes, she was not as surprised as the real thing. The decoration of this room was also very beautiful. Other than the slightly antique color, there were 2 flower beds on both sides of the exterior. There were some beautiful flowers that she could not recognize. The inside of the house was even more modern. There was gas, a refrigerator, a washing machine, and the electric lights were also beautiful. There was a light blue sofa, a pearwood coffee table, and a separate and clean bathroom. When Su Jiaojiao saw this familiar world, she almost cried. She had missed the bathroom for a long time. Fortunately, she was very calm. After all, this was not the first time she had seen it, so she was quite calm. Song Qinghan was a little curious, but he quickly calmed down. The main thing was that he did not have much interest in these things. At most, he was just curious. The 2 of them followed Jia and Song Huijin all the way here. It was a sunny morning, and some of the neighbors were sunbathing at the door. When they saw the few of them, a woman asked curiously, "Jia, who is this in your family?" With this sentence, the rest of the people looked over. These 2 young people were very good-looking. The man was handsome, and the woman was beautiful. They were also wearing nice clothes and leather shoes. The Song family couple was still in high demand here. Even if they lived in the same neighborhood, there was still a difference in their social status. Everyone wanted to build a good relationship with them. If there was a vacancy in the brickyard one day, they could use their connections to get their relatives to work there. Therefore, everyone was curious about the Song family, but they didn't dare to ask too much about it. At this moment, seeing this young man and woman come over without any gifts in their hands, and being treated so warmly by the Song couple, Jia, who always carried a somewhat arrogant air, couldn't help but smile apologetically. She didn't even take her eyes off the couple as they walked over. This contrast caused everyone to be astonished. Jia smiled and replied calmly, "It's my son, Song Qinghan, and my daughter-in-law, Su Jiaojiao. They're home, not guests." Everyone was dumbfounded. What? Jia nodded and did not say anything else. He led the 2 of them into the house. The few people left behind looked at each other blankly. One of them said, "I remember that her son is Song Yuan, right? Although that person isn't much, we did watch him grow up." Another person was puzzled. "Now that you mention it, I remember that I haven't seen this child for a long time. I don't know. These days, the Song family has been receiving guests. It seems like something big has happened. Could it be that they think that Song Yuan is too, so they adopted him?" The woman who spoke first said softly, "Don't you think that this young man looks quite similar to this couple? They look more like a family than the previous one." Everyone gasped and made their own guesses. All of them had different expressions on their faces. Gossip spread in the neighborhood. "This will be your home from now on. Don't be reserved. Do whatever you want." Jia was in charge of receiving them. Song Huijin watched with a smile. Su Jiaojiao and Song Qinghan both nodded. "We will." Jia smiled even more happily. She was even more excited than before. "Jiaojiao, Qinghan, let me show you your room. I prepared your clothes and everything." They've all been washed. The 2 of them nodded obediently and followed behind her. This was a 2-story house. Their room was also on the 2nd floor. When they opened the door, they saw that it was decorated very warmly. There was also a huge cabinet. When they opened the cabinet, they saw a pile of clothes. There were both men's and women's clothes, but there were more women's clothes. These clothes were different from Su Jiaojiao's usual clothes. They were similar to Jiya's, but they were more youthful. One look and they could tell that they were bought from a department store. There was also a desk and a bathroom in the room. Although it was a single room, it was very spacious. Jiya said as if she was presenting a treasure, "These 2 rooms are connected. I didn't ask you to come over because I wanted to give you the best room. Jiao Jiao, do you like it here? If there's anything you want, you can tell me directly. We don't lack anything at home. If you lack anything, you can just buy it." Su Jiaojiao quickly shook her head. I don't lack anything. This place is very good. It's much better than I imagined. She looked at the wardrobe with a little heartache. There were so many clothes. How much would it cost? She would rather use the money to buy all kinds of ingredients and cook for herself. Of course, she would cook for herself most of the time. Song Qinghan would do the work. Her gaze was too direct. Jia was speechless. It's good that you like it. I prepared a receipt for you in the desk drawer. Stay here for a little longer. Just buy whatever you want. If you don't have enough money, just tell me. Song Qinghan's expression softened. He did not expect them to be so thorough. However, he felt a little unnatural. Ever since he became sensible, he had never received money from others for free. He was grateful for their arrangement, but he could not accept it. Thank you. We have money. Jia shook her head disapprovingly. It's your money if you have money. Your father and I are giving you money. It's what we should do. We have money, so don't feel burdened. Don't forget that your father is a factory director. I'm also a member of the Women's Federation. I have a job. Song Qinghan frowned. He wanted to say something, but the person beside him tugged at him. The soft little hand in his hand hinted at him to stop talking. Su Jiaojiao smiled and said softly, he hasn't been treated like this since he was young. He's not used to it yet. I'll make him get used to it. Jia thought of those things again. Her eyes reddened. She pursed her lips and smiled. She said gently, it's okay. I understand. I'll go and cook. You can rest for a while or walk around. There's nothing you can't do at home. Jia said a few more words and was about to leave. When she reached the door, she seemed to have thought of something and said, he's no longer at home. His room has been converted into a storeroom. I've given away everything. After the door closed, Su Jiaojiao immediately relaxed. She moved her arms unnaturally and sat by the bed. She said softly, I still don't like it. Song Qinghan thought that her shoulders were sore. He quietly walked behind her and massaged her shoulders. If you don't like it, we'll go back. No. Su Jiaojiao shook her head. They're looking forward to you coming over to stay. They really love you. Song Qinghan was silent. Su Jiaojiao turned her head in confusion. She saw that the man's handsome face was still a little confused. However, it wasn't the kind of confusion that he didn't understand at all. It was as if he could understand but couldn't convince himself to accept it. Song Qinghan said softly, actually, I've already grown up. Su Jiaojiao thought of his previous experience and immediately understood. She knelt on the bed and hugged him. Her heart ached. She said in a muffled voice, even if you've grown up, it won't stop you from experiencing your parents' love. Besides, in the eyes of parents, children are never grown up. Look at my parents. They were so worried when we came out this time. Song Qinghan hugged her soft waist back. His eyes were a little sour. He thought of when he said goodbye to his parents-in-law when they got in the car. His mother-in-law repeatedly told him to take care of them, and his father-in-law's reluctance to leave as if they were going to go far away. He naturally understood. However, when he saw Jia and Song Huijin busying themselves with him and giving him a lot of things, he always felt that something was wrong. It was as if he shouldn't accept it because he could earn money on his own. Su Jiaojiao saw that he didn't say anything. She lowered her head and saw the man's somewhat blank gaze. She pursed her lips and suddenly smiled. She thought of a solution. Jia was very happy that her son was back. This was directly expressed in the dishes. Her cooking skills were also very good, but what was more amazing was the dishes on the table. They were inland, so seafood was very rare. However, half of the lunch was actually seafood, and the other half was a variety of chicken, duck, and fish that the Su family only had during the New Year. This roast duck is the signature dish of an old chef in Jinyang City. There are only 100 ducks a day, and it's not much worse than the roast duck in the capital. Your father has tasted it before and said that the taste is similar. Jia took the lead and placed her favorite duck meat in their bowls with the serving chopsticks. Su Jiaojiao didn't refuse. After taking a bite of the roast duck, she happily narrowed her eyes. It's delicious. Xianxia was also happy. And this crab. Although it's not at its best, it's the biggest I can find. Try it. This is the dipping sauce. If you like it, we can make it at night. There are still a few left. Yes, I like it. Su Jiaojiao was about to reach out to play with the crab. A pair of slightly tanned hands beside her took the fist-sized crab and carefully peeled it for her. Su Jiaojiao pursed her lips and smiled. She picked up other dishes and fed them to Song Qinghan. This is abalone. I heard it's very delicious. She stretched out her chopsticks, and Song Qinghan took the initiative to open his mouth. The two of them cooperated well. Xianxia, who was sitting opposite them, suddenly felt that she was a little redundant. She touched the goosebumps on her arms and looked at her husband helplessly. She didn't do what she did before and let them eat by themselves. Everyone remember to collect the website or remember the website. Website, no burglary, no burglary, no burglary, no burglary, no burglary. In order to make Song Qinghan more comfortable with the love his new parents gave him, Su Jiaojiao decisively chose to bring him along. Song Qinghan was very lazy when it came to family matters. He did not care about anything. Ever since he acknowledged her, he gave her all the money in the family. He did not care about anything else. He would accept whatever she bought for him. Occasionally, Su Jiaojiao would buy some small things for him. He treasured them very much. Su Jiaojiao never remembered that he liked books, and he did not want them either. He flipped through the 2 books he bought until Song Huijin found out and sent over a lot of books. Su Jiaojiao only found out then. She was very ashamed. He even comforted her. Even until now, Su Jiaojiao did not know what he liked to eat and what he did not like to eat. Anyway, he could eat a little of every dish. He would eat less of the good stuff. It was not that he did not like to eat, but he was used to saving it for others. Of course, it was mainly for Su Jiaojiao. Every time, he would wait for her to finish the leftovers and finish it himself. Su Jiaojiao only realized this after spending a long time with him. Later on, she forced him to eat. Only then did she become more sensible. Hence, Su Jiaojiao felt that he definitely did not spend much money on her. After lunch, the two of them went out. Xianxia and Song Huijin wanted to go out as well, but seeing the couple so intimate and happy, Xianxia chose to give up. He did not want to be a third wheel. They could not digest being a third wheel during lunch. Xianxia and Song Huijin placed 300 yuan and a stack of various coupons in their desk drawers. When they opened it up, there were cloth coupons, food coupons, wine coupons, and so on. There was everything they needed. Actually, Su Jiaojiao was quite suspicious. The Song family used to have Song Yuan as a heart patient, especially since the medical technology of this era was definitely not as good as the future. They could only use more money to nourish his body. Even if the Song family couple was quite capable, they shouldn't have been able to keep much money, right? Since they had already given it to her, Su Jiaojiao did not want to disappoint them. As parents, they would only be happier if Song Qinghan used their things. Thus, she held on to Song Qinghan's arm, and Song Qinghan left with money and tickets in his hands with a big smile on his face. In fact, Su Jiaojiao had never really been short of money since she came to this era. Therefore, she would not be thrifty in spending money. In the past, Song Qinghan had always given her money directly. He could not see, so naturally, he did not know how she spent money. It was only now that he was truly shocked. The two of them first left the neighborhood and followed the route Xianxia had given them. They took a bus and arrived at their destination, which was the largest shopping mall in the city center. Of course, the shopping malls of this era were much worse than those of the future. However, at this time, they were already very prosperous. Su Jiaojiao's initial impression of the 1970s was that they were poor. However, looking at the scene in front of her, she really did not feel that they were poor. There were fashionably dressed women and young men in suits and leather shoes. In comparison, the two of them, who were extremely well-dressed in villages and towns, looked a little shabby here. It was not that Xianxia and Song Huijin did not give them enough money. They had bought quite a lot. However, Su Jiaojiao liked simpler clothes, and Song Qinghan did not like those shirts and suits. Therefore, they tended to dress more plainly. They were not the kind of people who cared about such things. To Su Jiaojiao, she would rather spend her money on good food. She felt that her current clothes were enough. However, when she came to this shopping mall, she still felt a little guilty. Song Qinghan sensed that she was unnatural. He immediately patted her hand and said softly, "Don't worry so much." "Okay." Su Jiaojiao nodded and pursed her lips into a smile. Her little heart, which had been a little flustered, immediately calmed down. The two of them entered the shopping mall with faint smiles on their faces. At this time, the shopping mall was also state-owned. Naturally, the service was not very good. However, it was surprisingly better than the ones in the county. There were many things in the shopping mall. Su Jiaojiao first went to the cosmetics section. She had not had time to buy before. Now that she had the opportunity and money, she naturally could not miss it. "I want this. Su Jiaojiao directly ordered a few lipsticks. "Can I try the color?" "There are samples here." The woman in charge of the counter handed her the samples of lipsticks. Su Jiaojiao glanced at them. Although there were not many designs, the lipsticks were all very good colors. There were pure period red, bright red, and light red. The packaging also looked very classy. "I want 3. Su Jiaojiao finished testing the colors and gave the 3 lipsticks that she thought were suitable to the other party. Soon, the items were wrapped up. Song Qinghan paid for them. As soon as he took out the money, he was shocked by the price. One lipstick actually cost 10 yuan, that was 3 unity cards. Were the prices so expensive? Song Qinghan was stunned for a moment. However, his movements were very nimble as he paid. After buying the lipsticks, Su Jiaojiao bought some simple makeup tools such as an eyebrow pencil. After she was done shopping, she wanted to buy Song Qinghan hair gel. However, just as she said that, she was rejected. "No, I don't like to use these things." As he said that, he touched his short hair. After being trimmed by Su Jiaojiao and restyled by Tony, it became a standard buzz cut. It looked more masculine, so hair gel was useless. Su Jiaojiao reacted and gave up. She went to buy something else. "I picked a gift for our mother." "You should pick a gift for our father," Su Jiaojiao said with a smile. Song Qinghan nodded seriously and went to the leather shoes section. After buying the gifts for the elders, Song Qinghan's arm was already hung with many bags. At that moment, his expression was still calm, but it soon became stiff. That was because Su Jiaojiao wanted him to buy something for her. Seeing that his brows immediately furrowed, Su Jiaojiao smiled mischievously. "You can't refuse. Now that everyone has a gift, you have to spend at least 40 yuan to buy a gift for yourself." "If it's not enough," Song Qinghan looked at her with some distress and nervousness. His voice was weak as he tried to plead. "Jiaojiao," Su Jiaojiao ignored his pitiful pleas. With one hand behind her back, she looked at the couple's watch on her wrist and said, "There's still half an hour. If we can't finish spending it, let's split the bed." She couldn't bear to split the bed, but she was willing to split the bed. Of course, the reason why it was 40 yuan was because they had brought 100 yuan with them. Now, they only had 40 yuan left. The rest was for the bus fare and snacks. The rest of the 40 yuan was for the rest. This child had never spent money like this before, so he was too embarrassed to take his parents' money. Su Jiaojiao felt that she had to be ruthless. Song Qinghan's eyes widened in shock, as if he couldn't believe that she could be so cold. Su Jiaojiao bared her teeth and removed the watch on his wrist, not letting him look at the time. At the same time, she said fiercely, "There's no bargaining. If you exceed the time limit by a few minutes, you'll get a few days' worth of bed. If you don't finish spending it, you'll get a month's worth of bed." Song Qinghan was speechless. He had always been calm and composed, but now he was a little flustered. Pursing his thin lips, he put down the bags in his hands and walked over with the money in his long legs. Song Qinghan wasn't used to spending money on himself. It wasn't that he couldn't spend it, but he didn't like to buy things that he didn't think were necessary. For example, he didn't think that the men's perfume that other people liked was necessary at all. It was a waste to let him spend money on it. He would rather buy some food or clothes for Xiaoxiao so that she could dress up prettily. However, at this time, Song Qinghan couldn't care less. He rolled his eyes and went directly to the perfume area. At this time, most of the perfume was imported from abroad. Imported goods were indeed expensive and required a ticket. However, they had a ticket. Su Jiaojiao didn't like perfume, so she didn't buy it. She just happened to keep the ticket. His eyes swept across the series of perfume and pointed at the introduction of a few bottles. Can I try them? Sure. The woman in charge of the perfume department smiled and handed over the few things that he needed. Song Qinghan didn't spray it out. He put it to the tip of his nose and sniffed it. Finally, he selected a suitable one. I want this. Okay, here's 21 yuan. The woman reached out to take the money. Song Qinghan was vexed for a moment and handed the money over. When Jiao Jiao was buying things, he was secretly worried that he didn't have enough money to spend. He had to quickly go back to the village and think about other businesses. However, at this time, looking at the 19 yuan left, he felt that he had enough money to spend. Holding the packaged perfume, Song Qinghan thanked her and looked elsewhere. Jiao Jiao had just bought a pair of leather shoes. Since she gave him another set, he couldn't buy something too heavy. He went to buy something like a tie. He didn't feel much about the shirt. He even felt that it wasn't as comfortable as the cotton clothes he was wearing. However, he bought it for the sake of money. In the blink of an eye, he had walked up 2 floors and finally spent all his money. He was a thrifty person. Although Su Jiaojiao asked him to spend money, he still didn't want to spend too much. He saved as much as he could. He only bought things that he could use and knew how to use. He didn't buy those decorations. Of course, when he spent money, he felt extremely strange when he remembered that the money belonged to his biological parents. It was so complicated that he was a little absent-minded in the end. Finally, when he turned around and saw the petite figure waiting for him, his fluttering heart suddenly calmed down, and his chest was filled with a gentle feeling of warmth. Actually, there was a big difference in their personalities. However, he would tolerate it. She wouldn't be unreasonable and force him to let her do whatever she wanted. This time, Su Jiaojiao did this. Song Qinghan naturally understood her intentions. At least after this experience, he wouldn't feel as guilty as before when he faced Jia and Song Huijin's good intentions. Previously, he didn't reject them on the surface. However, when he accepted their good intentions, he was more or less hesitant and resistant. Jia and Song Huijin would occasionally notice that, and their eyes would more or less be filled with sadness and guilt. This was because they would think that their child should have happily accepted their good intentions. However, because of those 2 scums, he became like this, and all of this was caused by those 2 scums' original evil intentions as well as his parents' negligence at the time. Song Qinghan's lips curled up slightly. He quickened his steps and approached that person, wanting to reach out and hold her hand. Su Jiaojiao's lips curved into a smile. She lowered her head to look at the time, then at the handsome young man in front of her. Her eyes narrowed a little. Finished spending? Song Qinghan saw her raise her head to look at him. He couldn't help but rub her head with his hands. Su Jiaojiao's smile widened. Just as Song Qinghan felt his hands itch even more and wanted to pinch his face, she said, "It's 5 minutes over the time." Song Qinghan felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He clearly felt that it had only been a while. How did time pass so quickly? He looked at Su Jiaojiao with a slightly pitiful expression. However, the person he looked at didn't waver. 5 days, we'll share the bed. Song Qinghan was speechless. Everyone, remember to save the URL or remember the URL. Chat with a book friend. Song Qinghan did not expect his time to pass just like that. He was already very fast, however, Su Jiaojiao was impartial. Her little face was serious. No matter how pitiful Song Qinghan tried, it was useless. She gritted her teeth and said, "You have to do what you said. Otherwise, we will be untrustworthy people in the future." Sigh. Song Qinghan opened his mouth and wanted to refute. After all, this was a matter between husband and wife. What did it have to do with trust? However, he was the stupidest. He wanted to say something, but he could not. Especially when he opened his mouth, Su Jiaojiao pretended to be angry and glared at him. Even though he knew that she was pretending, Song Qinghan still could not bear to refute. In the end, he could only sigh. Song Qinghan's heart was filled with frustration. Moreover, they were in public, so he couldn't even secretly teach her a lesson. Su Jiaojiao smiled proudly. Actually, there was no overtime. Song Qinghan had calculated the time just right. However, she had thought that they would have to sleep in separate beds. Therefore, she took the watch off his hand. After taking it off, was it not up to her to decide whether it was overtime or not? Su Jiaojiao was not used to living in someone else's house. Even if they were Song Qinghan's parents, they had not really interacted with each other before. Moreover, she always felt that this room was not very soundproof. When they were in their hometown in the countryside, they would play for a while almost every night. Su Jiaojiao enjoyed this kind of thing because she did not reject it. Of course, it was also because Song Qinghan had a good body. Her will to resist was not so strong. Even if she did not want to, she would be worn down. In order to avoid the embarrassing incident like the first time when Aunt Wang heard it, Su Jiaojiao decided to sleep in separate beds. It was very easy for two hot-blooded young people to misbehave when they were together. Thinking of this, Su Jiaojiao looked at the young man beside her. His buzz cut exposed his entire face. He hadn't done any farm work for a while, and his complexion had become much fairer. It made him look more cultured, and he resembled Song Huijin even more. At this moment, his pale lips were tightly pursed and his brows were slightly furrowed. His eyes were staring straight ahead, and his expression was somewhat fierce. The culprit, Su Jiaojiao, couldn't help but feel a little guilty. She secretly pulled on his little finger and asked in a tender voice, "Qinghan, are you unhappy?" This time, Song Qinghan did not immediately shake his head to coax her. Instead, he glanced at her and silently lowered his eyes. Su Jiaojiao's heart trembled. It was a little sour. She silently covered her chest. She couldn't be soft-hearted. Otherwise, she would lose face in front of her parents-in-law. It would be even more embarrassing. Fortunately, even if Song Qinghan was unhappy and depressed, he still treated Su Jiaojiao well. Whatever she wanted to buy, he would immediately buy it. He was even calmer when it came to spending money. He didn't even blink an eye. The two of them happily harvested a bunch of things and returned. However, when they walked to the entrance of the neighborhood, they saw an uninvited guest. Song Yuan, who was obviously in dire straits, was wearing a set of wrinkled clothes. His fair skin was slightly green because he didn't need to bask in the sun. At a glance, there were a lot of blood vessels in the whites of his eyes. The color of his lips was also a little off. He didn't look very good to begin with, but his Song family's genes were there. Now that his expression changed, it became even uglier. At this moment, he was arguing with the guards at the door. His voice was a little flustered and exasperated. "Hurry up and call them out. Otherwise, let me in." The two guards were also a little scared. People who had been here for many years knew about Song Yuan's illness. None of them dared to get close, but they still insisted. "Sorry, our rules forbid you from entering. Your adoptive parents are about to come out." As soon as these words came out, Song Yuan became even more unhappy. "What adoptive parents? They are my biological parents." The guards smiled apologetically. A trace of disdain flashed in their eyes, but they didn't refute. Who didn't know that he was replaced by his biological parents? That was why he could live a good life here for more than 20 years. The guards refused to budge, and the people inside didn't come out for a long time. Song Yuan's expression was extremely ugly. Just as he was about to say a few more harsh words, he noticed two people from the corner of his eye. He suddenly became alert and immediately turned around. His face was distorted. "It's you." Song Qinghan's expression, which had just been coaxed by Su Jiaojiao, immediately turned cold. He frowned again, pursed his lips, and decided to ignore them. He walked towards the door. The two guards chuckled and said, "Sorry, we'll open the door now." The gate of the residential area had been closed directly because of Song Yuan. Now, if they wanted to enter or leave, they could only open it again. "Thank you." Song Qinghan nodded. Su Jiaojiao didn't care. She didn't plan to pay attention to them and followed behind Song Qinghan. However, just as they reached the door, Song Yuan, who was ignored, blocked them with a dark face and shouted, "What is the meaning of this? Didn't you see me?" Song Qinghan said indifferently, "I have always treated the Song family of Peach Blossom Village this way." Song Yuan gritted his teeth. "I'm not. They have nothing to do with me." "Oh." Song Qinghan once again responded indifferently without any objection. This expression and this tone directly made Song Yuan roll his eyes in anger. He clutched his chest and leaned against the door. The two guards panicked. "Should we send him to the hospital? If something happens, it'll be a big deal." Song Yuan shook his head and said coldly, "If something happens to me, it'll be because of these two. I'm not going to the hospital. If I die." Seeing Su Jiaojiao and Song Qinghan enter the residential area, he wanted to follow them in and drag them along. However, halfway through his words, two figures rushed over and made him stop his unbearable words. With tears in his eyes, he called out, "Dad, Mom." The guard who stopped him silently stopped and wiped the sweat from his face. He opened the gate of the residential area completely and sat in the guard room at the side, watching the big gossip outside through the glass window. This familiar call of Dad, Mom carried a sense of grievance and disappointment. Jia and Song Huijin instinctively felt sorry for their son. However, just as they were about to speak, they saw their son and daughter-in-law on the other side. Their expressions froze for a moment before they reacted and smiled gently. "Jiaojiao and Qinghan are back. Are you tired today?" Song Qinghan nodded. "Not tired." Then he stood there and looked at them, not intending to leave. If these parents still treated Song Yuan well as usual, then he would have to reconsider his relationship with them in the future. Su Jiaojiao pursed her lips and smiled obediently. "Dad, Mom, we just finished shopping and bought gifts for you and Dad. I picked Mom's gift, and Qinghan personally picked Dad's gift." When the Song family couple heard this, they couldn't help but feel warmth in their hearts, and their expressions became gentler. Jia, who usually had a slightly loud voice, tried his best to speak in a gentle voice. "Thank you." Song Huijin nodded vigorously. He looked at his son and couldn't bear to look away. It wasn't that their blood relationship was so magical, but Song Yuan might have had something to do with their education. He had always been in poor health when he was young, and they had always taken care of him carefully so that he didn't have to worry about other things. However, because of this, Song Yuan lacked a sense of gratitude. They had taught him this before, but they couldn't bear to force it, because if they did, his heart would feel uncomfortable. The two of them, who had never experienced their son's filial piety, suddenly heard that they had bought gifts for them. How long had it been since their son and daughter-in-law reunited? Moreover, the two of them had been in the countryside before, and their son had been injured previously. They didn't have much savings on hand. Naturally, the two of them felt very warm when they heard that their son had bought them gifts to repay them after receiving their allowance. Song Yuan, who originally belonged to this family of four, couldn't help but feel sour when he saw the scene of a benevolent father and filial son. He couldn't help but blurt out, "You didn't use your money, right? In the end, the wool comes from the sheep's back. Hypocrites." Su Jiaojiao looked at him strangely. This person's truth card hadn't lost its effect, or were the after effects so severe? The matchmaker system secretly popped out, "Madam Host, the truth card has lost its effect." He was so angry that he spoke without thinking. Su Jiaojiao held back her laughter. The Song family couple also felt uncomfortable all over when they heard this. Jia's expression instantly darkened, and he said coldly, "I'd be happy even if we had to fork out the money. We spent so much money on you back then, but we didn't ask you to compensate us. If I gave this money to my son, I could still keep a lot of it." Song Huijin added, "What are you doing here? We've already sent your things over." Song Yuan was scolded in the face, and he gritted his teeth in annoyance. He didn't know what was wrong with him, but when he saw this scene, especially when the person who had snatched his seat was pretending to be obedient, he was so angry that his mind went blank. But this wasn't what he had planned. Song Yuan looked at them fawningly. I was wrong. Dad, Mom, I just missed you. Look, I haven't been eating well these days. I want to eat the egg fried rice that you make, Mom. In the past, when he said this, Jia would always be coaxed by him and make a bunch of delicious food for him, or give him a lot of money to go out and have fun. But now, they had a real son. Especially since their son was so outstanding, the couple felt guilty that they couldn't give their son more. When they looked at Song Yuan again, they felt very displeased. Even if they still had more than 20 years of feelings, their biological son was watching. They definitely couldn't do anything foolish. Jia said with a straight face, "I'm no longer your mother. Back then, we agreed that your household register would be moved out and the two children would go back to their respective homes. Huijin and I will never forget what your parents did to my son. Don't waste your time thinking about it. Hurry and go back." It's over. When Song Yuan heard this, he felt a wave of despair. His heart suddenly felt like it was being hammered by something, and it was so painful that he had difficulty breathing. He weakly called out, "Mom." After that, he knelt on the ground and collapsed. Jia and Song Huijin panicked and wanted to go forward. One of them skillfully searched his body for medicine, while the other went to the guardhouse to get some water and fed him the medicine with trembling hands. Song Qinghan turned to look at the guardsmen who were watching the show. "Uncles, please call the ambulance." Okay. The two nodded and immediately made the call. On the other side, the two people who had already fed Song Yuan the medicine heaved a sigh of relief. Wiping the sweat from their foreheads, Jia stood up with weak legs leaning against Song Huijin. She looked at the man lying on the ground and said softly, "Let's wait for the ambulance to come before we leave." "Qinghan, why don't you go back first?" Song Huijin asked. It wasn't that he wanted to do anything, but he felt that his son was watching. It was a strange feeling, as if he had an inexplicable guilty conscience. Song Qinghan, who had always been obedient and sensible, did not agree at this time. "It's okay. When the ambulance comes, we'll go back together." "Okay." Jia was calm. She had sacrificed a lot for Song Yuan, but at the same time, she knew very well that this biological son of hers was more important. They had already let him down enough. If there was another Song Yuan who would make him suffer, it was best to avoid contact with him if possible. Even if she still had feelings for this son of hers. Su Jiaojiao blinked and asked doubtfully, "When the ambulance comes, do we have to pay?" "Who will pay?" Song Qinghan looked at the man whose eyes were tightly shut. His eyelids were lowered, but his eyes were secretly moving. He said matter-of-factly, "Naturally, whoever needs it will pay." Song Huijin was a little upset, but he still nodded. "It's like this. Your mother and I have already done our best for him. Whether he lived or died after this, it had nothing to do with them." At this moment, the man lying on the ground opened his eyes again. He coughed twice, his face pale and his body weak. He looked at them pitifully. "Dad, Mom, I'm scared alone. Can you go to the hospital with me?" Jia's heart softened, and she almost nodded. However, when she saw her biological son next to her, her rationality returned. She gritted her teeth and said, "Since you're awake, we'll go back first. Also, don't call us Dad and Mom." After saying that, she hurriedly pulled her husband and turned around, afraid that if she walked any slower, her heart would really soften. Song Qinghan looked down. He held Su Jiaojiao's hand and followed them. He could tolerate everything else, but not this, but he stole a glance at the person next to him with a guilty conscience. His thin lips pursed slightly. Would Jiaojiao think that he was cold-blooded? With this glance, he saw Su Jiaojiao raise her eyebrows at him. Her big eyes were full of smiles. She even secretly gave him a thumbs up with her free hand and silently said, "Beautifully done." Ahem. Song Qinghan coughed softly to cover his laughter. The corners of his lips curled up. Su Jiaojiao blushed as she placed the blanket she had gotten from her mother-in-law on the bed. Then, she threw herself onto the bed and buried her face in the soft, cold blanket. Thinking back to how Jia had looked at her with that strange gaze, she felt uncomfortable all over from her feet to her neck. "You two are so close. Why do you have to share the blanket?" "Sigh, I didn't think about that. But it's a little cold at this time. Do you want another blanket?" But as someone who has been through this before, I still have to say that it's good for a couple to sleep under the same blanket. Don't worry, the room at home is quite soundproof. "Ow wow." Su Jiaojiao was annoyed by Jiya's voice in her head. Finally, she bit the blanket with a ferocious face. She could be sweet with Song Qinghan, but it was very awkward when the matters between husband and wife were brought up. Especially when the person they were talking about was her mother-in-law. The shame was overwhelming. Fortunately, her father-in-law was not around. Song Qinghan stroked her soft, smooth hair and comforted her. "I told you not to go." Su Jiaojiao harumphed and turned to glare at him. "If you go, why should I go?" Song Qinghan said innocently, "I'm not going. I don't want to share the blanket." Su Jiaojiao, that made sense. She could not object. But in order to get back at him, she said fiercely, "Before we share the blanket, you have to warm it for me. You can go back after you're done." Song Qinghan chuckled. "Okay." It was already December, and the wind was cold. At this time, things like air conditioners were only officially introduced in the 1990s. Although everyone said that Jinyang City was in the south, it was geographically neither south nor north. It would snow, and the temperature would drop a few degrees below zero. However, there was no heater here, and most people in this era did not know that winter in the north was so comfortable. The construction of this building was not bad. The cold air was blocked outside. Although it was still quite cold, it was still bearable to wear a cotton-padded jacket and move around a bit. At night, Su Jiaojiao let Song Qinghan take a shower first. He was a big man and his body was hot. Anyway, she did not feel cold at all in the winter when she hugged him to sleep. In winter, most people took a shower every few days because they had to take off their clothes to take a shower. It was really cold. There was a saying in the later generations that mocked this: those who bathe in the southern winter are all warriors. However, Su Jiaojiao was already used to it. The two of them were always so clingy. She always felt that there was Song Qinghan's saliva on her body. She had to wash it off, and so did Song Qinghan. A few minutes later, Song Qinghan came out of the bathroom with steam all over his body. He quickly climbed onto the bed and covered himself with the blanket, leaving only his head exposed. He looked at her with his dark eyes and said obediently, "I'll warm your bed." Su Jiaojiao's heart ached and she was a little embarrassed. "You don't have to be naked, right?" Song Qinghan pursed his lips and smiled. He was very considerate. "This will be faster. You go take a shower. The bathroom is still hot." Oh right, she had to hurry. Su Jiaojiao immediately suppressed her heartache and ran to the bathroom. 10 minutes later, she came out and saw Song Qinghan frowning and moving the blanket. At the same time, he let out a shivering voice. Hiss. Su Jiaojiao felt cold when she heard it, especially when he really went over. When she lay down, her whole body shivered and her teeth chattered. She almost could not help but say, "Forget it, just one blanket." Fortunately, she held back in the end. In fact, when the two of them were in the same bed, full and warm, they would think about that. It was not only Song Qinghan who could not hold back, but she also could not hold back. She always liked to touch this and that. In the end, Song Qinghan was aroused by her touch, and the person who did not want to do it became one who wanted to do it. Su Jiaojiao took a deep breath and quickly lay down on the bed. She moved left and right. Finally, she lifted her legs and wrapped her whole body into a cocoon. After everything was done, Su Jiaojiao looked as if she had completed a big task. She breathed a sigh of relief and tilted her head to look at the person close to her. She grinned, revealing a few small white teeth, and said in a crisp voice, "Done." Song Qinghan was stunned by her series of actions. His originally somewhat aggrieved expression could not help but soften. His chest was full and his expression was a little more satisfied. He was very glad that he was the one who saw this cute scene. It was a novel experience for the two of them to be so intimate and not be in the same bed occasionally. Song Qinghan's heart was still regretful that he did not have a familiar body in his arms, but he gently nodded, and then good night. Su Jiaojiao was about to say good night as well when she suddenly remembered that the mission had not been cancelled and was still ongoing. She immediately pouted, "Here." She could not give up like this. The milk powder provided by the system tasted really good. Song Qinghan looked at those red pouted lips and the smile on his lips widened. The last bit of regret in his heart disappeared and he leaned over. After a while, the two of them separated and their breathing was a little hurried. Especially Su Jiaojiao, her hands almost reached out from under the blankets to hug his neck. However, just as she reached out, the cold air hit her and her arms instantly had goosebumps. She timidly put them down. Song Qinghan forcibly shifted his gaze away from those watery eyes and those dark red lips that had been sucked on. With a straight face, he said, "Go to sleep, good night." Tonight was the first time the two of them had separated from the blankets since they officially became a couple. In the end, they even had a lingering kiss. Su Jiaojiao seemed to have returned to her previous ambiguous relationship. Her face was red as she shyly lowered her eyes and whispered, "Good night." Song Qinghan thought that this matter would be over, but who knew that he had overestimated Su Jiaojiao's body. What was it like to sleep in a bed that was not warm? Su Jiaojiao had not been like this for many years. Her family was quite well off and she had earned quite a bit of money from her freelance work in her previous life. Her house was equipped with air conditioning and radiators, and even an electric blanket. After coming here, she had a human heater, Song Qinghan, so she never really felt cold. But now, she was woken up by the cold in the middle of the night. Su Jiaojiao sleepily rubbed her eyes. Only then did she realize that her entire body was cold. Even her face was chilly, and her feet seemed to be frozen to the point that they could not feel anything. Feeling wronged, she pursed her lips and turned her head. The dim bedside lamp shone on Song Qinghan's sleeping face. It was obvious that he was sleeping soundly. Su Jiaojiao curiously reached out to touch his exposed face. As soon as she touched it, it was indeed warm. She immediately gnashed her teeth in envy and couldn't help but want to pinch his nose. But as soon as she touched it, she hesitated. It wouldn't be good to wake him up like this, right? His nose was a little itchy. Even though Song Qinghan was asleep, he could still feel it. He directly reached out and grabbed the thing on his nose. As soon as he touched it, he realized that it was a hand. In his dream, Song Qinghan frowned. He only felt that the small hand in his palm was cold and was not as soft as before. He smoothly stuffed it into his chest to warm it up. See, his body stiffened from the cold but soon softened again. Both of his hands covered the small hand. Su Jiaojiao was embarrassed by this series of unforeseen events. She had long been accustomed to touching him, but at this moment, she felt as if she had returned to the first time she touched him. She bit her lip and muttered softly, "You're the one who pulled me. I didn't take the initiative." Her hand was in the warm blanket, and her arm was in the cold air. This feeling was really like a combination of ice and fire. She didn't want it. Su Jiaojiao pursed her lips and smiled. With her other hand, she pulled open the blanket and Song Qinghan's blanket. She nimbly kicked open her own blanket and crawled over. Song Qinghan, who was sleeping soundly, felt a familiar breath on his face. He did not resist. Instead, he obediently opened the blanket and welcomed a lump of ice. "Why is it so cold?" Song Qinghan frowned and murmured with her eyes closed. She hugged her in her arms and warmed her hands and feet. Then, in a daze, she made sure that the quilt was covered properly before she went back to sleep. Su Jiaojiao blushed and smiled foolishly. She raised her head and kissed him on the chin. "Mwah." Tonight's performance was simply too amazing. She was left with a heart full of sweetness. However, at this moment, Song Qinghan also woke up. He was already half asleep, and after being kissed and his body being disturbed, how could he not wake up? As soon as he opened his eyes, he felt a familiar breath in his arms. He asked doubtfully, "Jiaojiao?" Su Jiaojiao pinched him and pretended to be fierce. Could it be anyone else? With that self-righteous look, it was impossible to tell that she was the one who crawled under the blanket. Song Qinghan laughed and shook his head. "It's you, but..." He glanced at the blanket that was almost kicked off the bed. "You're not sharing the blanket?" Su Jiaojiao was embarrassed and annoyed. "I'm cold. Do you want to watch me freeze to death?" "Of course not." Song Qinghan shook his head again. His consciousness was awakened, and he was also awake. He turned over and said in a muffled voice, "I have to pay for the blanket, right?" Su Jiaojiao looked at him in shock. After a while, she mumbled a few words. "You've learned bad things." Since Su Jiaojiao had failed miserably on the first day of sharing the blankets, Song Qinghan had learned his lesson and did not ask to share the blankets. The next night, he obediently warmed the blankets for her and returned to his own. Su Jiaojiao, who had initially wanted to share the blankets, did not know what to say. It was all her fault for being overconfident and thinking that she could handle it. In the end, she was too weak. Now, Su Jiaojiao really wanted to slap a sticker on her face. The person involved is very regretful. Because she was now going to Song Qinghan's bed and had to pay for it. Was he still human? What a dog. When Su Jiaojiao woke up the next day, she almost scratched him to death. But when night came, she still chickened out. But tonight, she had also prepared a secret weapon, a hot water bottle. This thing was quite useful. Su Jiaojiao placed it by her feet. In a short while, the blankets were warm and her body was even sweating. Song Qinghan calmly watched her struggle and said pretentiously, "Not bad. Jiaojiao is really smart." Su Jiaojiao. Haha. Although he was angry, he still kissed her goodnight. After the two talked for a while, sleepiness hit. Su Jiaojiao habitually pouted and said obediently and coquettishly, "Kiss kiss." Song Qinghan's eyes were filled with love as he kissed her seriously. In the end, the two looked at each other and smiled, saying good night. However, in the middle of the night, or to be exact, in the wee hours of the morning, Su Jiaojiao woke up from the cold again. The hot water bottle was different from the electric blanket. It would not take long for it to become cold. When she woke up, her feet could no longer touch the hot water bottle. She reached down and felt the cold hot water bottle from a distance. Su Jiaojiao's little face fell again. She looked at Song Qinghan bitterly. This dog of a man, why couldn't she sleep in a warm bed? Song Qinghan was sleeping quietly. He had quit smoking, didn't like drinking, and exercised frequently. His lifestyle was like a template. Naturally, he didn't like snoring. When he slept, his lips were pursed, and only the sound of his shallow breathing could be heard. Su Jiaojiao blinked and curled into a ball under the quilt. She couldn't get warm for a long time, so she finally gave up and quietly lifted the quilt next to hers. She hoped that her movements would be quieter and not wake him up. Su Jiaojiao almost held her breath. Her lips were tightly pursed as she walked over. First, she moved her legs, not daring to touch him. When she felt the heat, she stopped. Then, she moved her butt over. Finally, she walked over on her own. Fortunately, the bed was big enough. But the blanket wasn't big enough. Song Qinghan slept on the right side of the bed. Part of the blanket on his right side was already pressed down. It was warm to sleep like this. This was how people in the south slept. But because of this, there were very few empty blankets on the left side. Su Jiaojiao went in, but half of her body was still outside. She pulled a long face and carefully turned around. Lying on her side would at least reduce the surface area, right? Suddenly, Song Qinghan moved. Su Jiaojiao froze and didn't dare to move. Her back was facing Song Qinghan, so she couldn't see his situation. But when she saw that he had only turned over, she was relieved. After a few breaths, she continued to move and moved over. She continued to move, she moved until she was next to Song Qinghan. Then, she stopped and covered herself with the blanket. Su Jiaojiao reacted. The space seemed to have become bigger. But this blanket was really warm, comfortable. She smiled contentedly and was about to close her eyes. A pair of arms came from behind and lifted her up slightly. One of the arms went under her neck, and a warm chest pressed against her back. Steady breaths hit the top of her head. Su Jiaojiao's smile froze. She was so frightened that she didn't dare to move. After what seemed like a long time, she realized that the person behind her was just hugging her and didn't move. She then relaxed and habitually curled up in his arms. With this, the two of them were pressed against each other. Su Jiaojiao suddenly felt that something was wrong. The bulge that burst his pants last time seemed to have appeared again. She immediately had a bad premonition. Before she could try to save him, her premonition came true. The person behind her squeezed her arm, then laughed and said, "Are you here to pay for the blankets again?" Su Jiaojiao. "No, you're wrong. I'm still under my blanket." "Liar." Song Qinghan muttered softly, as if he hadn't woken up yet. Su Jiaojiao wanted to say that they should forget it. They were already husband and wife, so there was no need to charge for the blankets. But his hands had already started moving. After a long time, he said, "So this position is not bad?" Su Jiaojiao's answer was to bite his arm, and her expression was distorted. "Dog man." Later, she gave up and let him do whatever he wanted. The two of them didn't stay in the city all the time. In fact, the city was not as lively as the village. There were many people in the city, and every family, even if the Song family was a single family. There were many neighbors next door, and Song Huijin's status made many people keep an eye on them. It was different when they returned to the village. They could let the Su family deal with things they didn't like. They only needed to take care of their own small family and live peacefully. Therefore, the two of them stayed in the city for a week and went back. During this week, Su Jiaojiao also secretly took money to buy all kinds of things. Many of the things were ordinary in the city, and it was difficult to buy in the town even if you had money. It was very troublesome to go there now. Su Jiaojiao and Song Qinghan's household registration had been transferred to the city due to their special circumstances. However, they still had their household registration in the village. It was a loophole, and no one would say anything if they went to both sides. Although the people in the village were curious that they hadn't really left, Song Qinghan and Su Jiaojiao grew up here, so they didn't ask too much about it. After all, they already had parents in the city. Their parents looked very powerful, so it was meaningless to argue about it. It was better to get along well with them, and if there was an opportunity, they could help their own family. They often went to the city, and the people in the village occasionally let them bring things. Su Jiaojiao didn't directly agree. In any case, they could bring things, but they couldn't bring big things. They also couldn't bring things that could be found in the town or county. The expensive things had to be paid for running. Some people were dissatisfied, but it was useless. After all, who would be willing to work for free? Moreover, the running fee was not small. It was basically the difference between the town and the city. Sometimes, it was even higher. Therefore, many people chose to give up. Some people would say a few words behind their backs, but it was still the same sentence that didn't reach their ears. Su Jiaojiao and Song Qinghan pretended not to hear it. There was no need to look for trouble. The two of them lived comfortably. However, while they were comfortable, the Su family was not. On the first day back, Su Jiaojiao and Song Qinghan decisively refused a group of people's requests to bring goods. That night, several groups of villagers came to the Su family's house to chat. They said that their daughter and son-in-law were not good enough. Sun Fong thought that the two children had just returned, so she didn't say anything. She just pretended not to hear it. The next day, another wave of people came. Moreover, the tone of those people was much heavier. She felt a little uncomfortable and guilty. However, it was already time for dinner, so she endured it. On the third day, Debao came to call the two of them to eat in the morning. There was no need to cook, so the two of them went over at 11 o'clock. Before they sat down, Sun Fong pulled her daughter and asked, "I heard that someone asked them to help bring some things. You didn't agree?" Song Qinghan was about to speak, but Su Jiaojiao secretly stopped him. She blinked and pouted, "Mom, why should I agree? If they want me to help them bring some small things like lipstick, of course, I can. But they only ask us to help them bring big things. Every time we come back, we bring big and small bags. How can we have the energy to help them? Also, we can buy it in the county, but it's a little more expensive." Sun Fong didn't have any temper in front of her daughter. She said angrily, "You think you're the only one who's expensive? How much cheaper can it be? Isn't it money? Not to mention, I heard that shoes can be cheaper by a few dollars." Su Jiaojiao spread her hands, "Mom, if I bring it for one person, I guarantee that there will be a second, a third, or even more. Why don't we just grit our teeth and bear with it? Then you should bring at least one or two people who are close to you, right?" Sun Fong gently taught her, "How can you not have some connections when you're dealing with people?" Su Jiaojiao smiled and said, "The price I give fourth aunt is a little lower than the price in the county. I can't just go all the way and not earn a single cent, right?" Sun Fong laughed angrily when she heard this. "I was wondering why your fourth aunt was beating around the bush. Our families are related, and your man is close to Dinyo. How can you have the nerve to ask for travel expenses? Su Jiaojiao pursed her lips and smiled. What's there to be embarrassed about? Besides, she wants me to bring a radio. It sounds like her youngest son wants it. Even if Qinghan is close to Dinyo, I can't not take the money. Otherwise, if I really bring it for her, won't Dinyo suffer a huge loss? Sun Fang, who was about to slap her hand angrily, paused and looked at her with a strange expression. After thinking for a while, she whispered, "What you said makes sense." Song Qinghan silently curved his lips and said softly, "Mom, we're going to the city. It takes 4 hours by car. Jiaojiao's face turns pale every time we ride. Sometimes, she even vomits. It's so tiring, how can she have the energy to bring things for others?" Su Jiaojiao was stunned. How could it be so bad? She had vomited again when she saw the people in the same car. She was so disgusted that she almost vomited. "Io, why didn't you say so earlier?" Sun Fang looked at her daughter with heartache. "Next time, I'll make some sugar water for you to bring." "Sai, why don't you live in the city? In the future, you'll have to travel to both places. You can come back to visit during the holidays." Su Jiaojiao's mouth twitched. She guiltily bowed her head to welcome her mother's care. As they were talking, Su Jingyang came in with a gloomy face. He sighed and couldn't really smile when he saw his daughter. Sun Fang changed the subject. "What's wrong? Did you fight with someone?" This was originally a joke, but she didn't expect Su Jingyang to really nod. "I did fight, but it wasn't with me." "What?" The people in the room who were doing their own things were surprised. They gathered around curiously. Li Xiu's belly was very prominent now, and he had gained a lot of weight. It was obvious that he had taken good care of himself. He immediately supported his waist and sat down. "Dad, what happened?" Su Jingyang glanced at his daughter and said worriedly, "The daughter of the Zhang family was beaten by her husband." She ran back with a bloody nose and a swollen face. She was crying at home. Second brother Zhang brought his 2 sons and a few nephews over. I followed them all the way, but they were kneeling and kowtowing. They said that they wouldn't do it again and asked them to send the daughter back. Su Jiaojiao originally thought that it was gossip, but when she heard this, she suddenly felt a little flustered. She remembered that when Zhang Yu got married, she saw that the man looked fierce and fierce. She guessed that he must have hit her very hard. She pursed her lips and felt a little depressed. Zhang Qian asked, "Did they really send her back?" "Anyway, when I came back, they said that they would send her back, but they had to wait until the afternoon," Su Jingyang said. Sun Fang was angry. "How can they send her back just like that? We have to let them know how to be afraid. What's the use of kowtowing? What if they hit her again next time?" "I think so too, but she's not our daughter." Su Jingyang's tanned face wrinkled, and he felt terrible. His 2 sisters-in-law and Sun Fang shook their heads and sighed. It's said that marriage is as important as a second reincarnation. You must find a good man. Fortunately, my Jiaojiao married well. Sun Fang sighed bitterly. Su Jiaojiao pursed her lips and felt depressed. "Mom, after dinner, why don't you come with me to Zhang Yu's house?" Although it might be useless, there were some things that she couldn't feel at ease for the rest of her life if she didn't say them. Sun Fang remembered that her daughter had a good relationship with the daughter of the Zhang family, so she immediately nodded. "Of course. We still have the candy you bought last time at home. Bring some with you. We probably won't have many chances to see each other in the future." Zhang Yu's injuries were even more horrifying than Su Jiaojiao had imagined. Her face was really bruised and swollen. Her dad wasn't exaggerating, he was telling the truth. There wasn't a single spot on her face, eyes, and forehead that was still visible. If she couldn't see, it would be even more horrifying. At least, when Su Jiaojiao came over, Zhang Yu heard her limping when she opened the door to let her in. When Zhang Yu saw her, it was as if she had seen her savior. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she burst into tears. "Jiaojiao, I'm so miserable." Su Jiaojiao helped her sit down. She was shocked and didn't know what to say for a moment. Married to a disabled big boss in the 70's, Transmigration, will be updating the latest chapter as soon as possible. Remember the domain name. She didn't like to talk to people. She was slightly afraid of society. When she first chose to work as a freelancer, it was also because she didn't need to talk to people face to face. She always felt that she was at a loss for words and didn't know how to comfort her. Fortunately, Xianxia didn't think too much about it. She just wanted to vomit. I really didn't expect him to be so cruel. Ever since I married him, I've been working so hard for his family, but he's still not satisfied. He sneaks out to gamble every day, and when he comes back after losing money, he hits me. Sob sob. He only hit me a few times before, but when he came back yesterday, he lost money. After he hit me once, I couldn't get up the whole night. What kind of sin have I committed to end up with such a man? Xianxia felt so wrong that she couldn't stop crying. Then she looked at Su Jiaojiao and said enviously, "You married so well." Su Jiaojiao deliberated for a moment in her mind before saying, "Actually, you can get a divorce." These two words stunned Xianxia. She quickly shook her head, looking flustered. "What nonsense are you talking about? You'll be criticized for getting a divorce." Su Jiaojiao was silent for a moment after hearing her words. She asked suspiciously, "Will someone beat you because of your divorce?" Xianxia looked miserable. She was completely different from the delicate and reserved girl she was before she got married. She had lost a lot of weight, and her hair was messy. Coupled with the marks on her face, it was hard to imagine that she had been married for less than a year. She was only 19 years old. Xianxia murmured, "My parents will definitely beat me. My sister-in-law won't let me eat rice at home. Also, I can't divorce. The Liu family won't agree." The Liu family was her in-laws. Su Jiaojiao frowns, "You can pay your family living expenses." Xianxia had always said that she wouldn't get a divorce. She didn't even dare to think about it. However, Su Jiaojiao kept leading her in this direction. She couldn't help but think about it. In the end, she shook her head bitterly. "It's impossible. How can I make money?" "The black market." Su Jiaojiao said in a low voice, "Be smart. Go to the black market and sell things." "Don't you cook very well? I can teach you how to make pastries at home. After you make them, you can sell them. You can pay a portion of the money for your living expenses and save the rest to buy yourself a house in the future." "I don't dare," Xianxia said weakly. Before Su Jiaojiao could persuade her again, she had already quickly shook her head and said, "I don't want to. If I get caught, I'll be in big trouble." Su Jiaojiao could only give up and said, "Actually, Song Qinghan beat me before, but he stopped after that." Xiangxia's eyes widened in shock. She asked, "Really?" Su Jiaojiao nodded vigorously. In her heart, she kept apologizing to Song Qinghan for tarnishing his reputation. However, Xianxia was too timid. Without an example, she wouldn't listen. Thus, she said, "Do you know what method I used?" Xianxia shook her head. Her facial features became vivid, which tore at the wounds on her face. Her tears flowed even faster, but she stared at her without blinking. Su Jiaojiao's expression turned cold. She said, "I hit him back." "How is that possible?" Xianxia shook her head in disbelief. Su Jiaojiao said fiercely, "What's impossible about that? He was stronger and stronger than me, but I didn't want to live anymore." People say that cowards are afraid of unreasonable people, and unreasonable people are afraid of those who don't want to live anymore. I didn't want to live anymore, so he was naturally afraid. In any case, before I was beaten to death, I had to drag him down with me. In the end, he was scared, so I beat him up. That time, to vent my anger, I even cut his hair. Do you know? Xianxia nodded weakly. Her voice weakened. She looked at Su Jiaojiao with a hint of fear in her eyes. I know. Of course she knew. Song Qinghan had swaggered through the streets with his dog-gnawed hair. She had even envied him for indulging Su Jiaojiao. So it was because of this? Su Jiaojiao didn't say much. She just said proudly, "In any case, he doesn't dare to hit me now. If he does, I'll take out a knife first. Don't think that he's capable now that he's found his biological parents. All his money is in my hands. He doesn't have a single cent on him." Wow. Xianxia looked at her with admiration. When Su Jiaojiao saw this, she told her more details about the fight between her and Song Qinghan. Zhang Yu prostrated herself in admiration. Thanks to her freelance experience in her previous life, she was very good at making up stories. She successfully made Zhang Yu believe her. When Su Jiaojiao finally left, she could see that her expression was slightly more determined than before. Sometimes, people just lacked a little opportunity. Su Jiaojiao didn't teach her how to do it. In her story, Song Qinghan's character was actually very similar to the Lu family's character. They were both strong, and their families had a bunch of top-notch goods. However, he was afraid of her, so he behaved himself. Su Jiaojiao returned home with a dry mouth. Song Qinghan brought her a glass of water. She drank it and felt relieved. However, when she saw Song Qinghan, she felt guilty. She put down the glass in her hand and stood obediently with her hands clasped together. "Dear, I was wrong." Song Qinghan, Su Jiaojiao, I ruined your reputation, she explained the situation to him. Song Qinghan's mouth twitched. He was speechless for a moment. However, when he saw the sincere apology on her pretty face, he smiled helplessly. That's fine. However, aren't you afraid that something will really go wrong? Su Jiaojiao threw herself into his arms and said in a muffled voice, if she can't learn how to fight back, then she will only be beaten to death by that man. If divorce is impossible, then I'd rather she be like the character in my story. I'd rather she suppress that man and make him behave. If it weren't for the fact that the system didn't have it, she would have wanted to exchange for a strength pill. When she faced that scumbag, the pill would be activated and her strength would increase by several times. From then on, she wouldn't have to worry about the difference in physical strength between men and women. It was said that listening to the wise man's words was better than studying for 10 years. When Zhang Yu sent Su Jiaojiao away, she thought so in her heart. She had a weak personality. To be honest, it was impossible for her to get a divorce unless she was forced to do so under extreme circumstances. However, there were still other possibilities. Especially when there was a living example right in front of her. At this moment, Zhang Yu was filled with passion. Her mind was filled with fantasies of becoming the woman that Su Jiaojiao described, pressing Lu Shitu to the ground and rubbing him against the ground. The Zhang family couldn't really take her in for long. Their family wasn't rich to begin with. Moreover, they still had to pay for her medical treatment. After lunch, the two sisters-in-law disliked her in all sorts of ways. Hence, Zhang Yu was sent back home at around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Mom, Dad, you can go back. I'm fine. Zhang Yu waved her hand and gestured for her parents to go back. The Zhang parents looked guilty and distressed, but they didn't say anything. Now that things had come to this, could they still not let their daughter get married? The two of them left. Zhang Yu went back home by herself. When she entered the house, she saw Lu Shitu and the Lu family. At first glance, her heart skipped a beat and she shivered. She pursed her lips and didn't intend to pay attention to them. These people didn't just stand by and watch when Lu Shitu hit her. They were also adding fuel to the fire. If they hadn't kicked up a fuss and said that daughters-in-law should be beaten and that she would be obedient after being beaten, she wouldn't have been beaten so badly. Stop right there. Lu Shitu frowned and roared. There was a hint of hostility on his rough face. You haven't washed your clothes yet. Where are you going? Are you slacking off again? Zhang Yu gritted her teeth. Why should I wash them? Those aren't my clothes. After saying that, she felt her whole body trembling. She was trembling in fear. For the first time, she rebelled against them. Oh my, you've become a lot more strong-willed after going back to your parents' home, the Lu family's sister-in-law said sarcastically. Lu Shitu's face was obviously ugly. Hurry up. Do you want me to hit you? Zhang Yu's legs were starting to go weak, but when she thought of Su Jiaojiao's words, she gritted her teeth and said, I won't. Lu Shitu was so angry that he laughed. He snorted twice, then strode forward and reached out with his big hand. Ah, Zhang Yu screamed in fear. Lu Shitu sneered and thought, it's too late to be afraid. His face was cold and he wanted to hit her. Who would have thought that even though Zhang Yu was screaming, he still returned the slap after he hit him. He was still screaming non-stop, you F***ing dare to hit me? Lu Shidu's face twisted and he hit her even harder. Xianxia felt the pain and stopped screaming. She bit Lu Shidu's arm hard and punched and kicked him, but she didn't let go. Let go of me. This time, it was Lu Shidu's turn to scream. When Mother Lu saw this, she immediately screamed, "You little b***tch, how dare you bite my son? I'll kill you." When Xianxia saw that help was coming, she immediately let go and ran into the kitchen. She quickly took out a kitchen knife and said ferociously, "Come on, hit me." At this moment, her mind was blank. Fear, nervousness, and craziness accumulated together. She only wanted to fight back and completely suppress these people, the Lu family's people who were ready to make a move. What did they do? Cold weapons and flesh and blood, *************. At this time, it was normal to hit one's wife. Many people were like this. They didn't feel that they were equal to their wives. In this era, the law was not perfect. Many things were solved with fists in private. It was completely different from the future legal society. Therefore, when Su Jiaojiao heard that Xianxia had injured Lu Shidu and a few people from the Lu family, she was worried that something had happened to Xianxia. In the end, she found that nothing had happened to Xianxia, and no one had even pursued the matter. Instead, it was Sun Fang who whispered, "I didn't expect that Xianxia, this girl, to be such a ruthless person even though she usually looks so quiet. Let's see if the Lu family dares to bully her now." When Xianxia brought her husband home for New Year's greetings, she specially went to Su Jiaojiao's house with gifts to thank her for what she said back then. If it weren't for Su Jiaojiao's words, she wouldn't have instinctively remembered the word resist when she was being hit. She would have begged for mercy. After she really resisted, Xianxia realized that it wasn't that difficult. After all, the Lu family was a tyrant at home. In fact, they were so afraid of death that they didn't dare to move when she held a knife. In the end, they obediently let her teach them a lesson. After the new year, she would leave the family and live alone. She would teach her husband how to farm properly. Life would be better. Because Ji Xian's business was stable and safe, he had now expanded his business and pulled Shishu into his partnership. Su Jiaojiao didn't know how the two of them hooked up, but since it was like this, she was more relieved. Shishu had the halo of the female lead, so nothing should happen to him. The food business was the most suitable and safe business for the two of them. Shishu and Su Jiaojiao's cooking skills were good, and with Song Qinghan, they were like fish in water. Su Jiaojiao didn't know what Song Qinghan was like in the book, but the Song Qinghan here was much more flexible in business than Su Jiaojiao. Su Jiaojiao usually didn't let him do many things because they were dangerous. However, the two of them often went to the city and the village, so they could always get some goods without attracting attention. Because they didn't need to go to work, Song Qinghan even took Su Jiaojiao to the south by train. He was in charge of receiving the goods, Ji Xian was in charge of sales, and Su Jiaojiao was the assistant. She watched as the money in her hands increased. Su Jiaojiao, who always felt that she didn't do anything, wanted to kneel down to Song Qinghan's bold and capable brain. Life was getting more and more stable, and Su Jiaojiao began to think about losing weight. Because she had gained a lot of weight, God knew that as a person with a system, she could get one of those delicacies as a snack every day. Occasionally, she would secretly buy something for herself. It was impossible not to gain weight with such high-calorie food. After all, the things from the matchmaker system were not illusions. They were all real. Speaking of losing weight, Su Jiaojiao was just thinking about it when the matchmaker system gave her a mission. Ding! Mission 25, exercise is good for losing weight. Please let your husband say to his wife every night, "Wife, I love you 5 times for half a month." You will receive the system's special magical weight loss capsule. Su Jiaojiao looked at the mission in surprise. Just as she was about to be happy, she suddenly realized something. Hong, didn't you tell me last time that you were leaving soon? It's been half a year, why haven't you left yet? As soon as he said this, his mind became quiet. Even the translucent screen disappeared, as if it had never appeared. Su Jiaojiao sneered, "You dare lie to me?" The matchmaker system said weakly, "I'm really going to separate from you, but it's not that kind of separation. It's just that I have enough love points to materialize a physical body." Su Jiaojiao was stunned. The matchmaker system instinctively felt that it was dangerous and hurriedly added, "Madam Host, I really thought that I was going to leave. Who knew that it was just an evolution? Boo-hoo. I didn't lie to you on purpose." Su Jiaojiao's mouth twitched. Hearing the childish crying in his mind, he hurriedly shook his head. Forget it, forget it. I didn't say anything. When can you materialize a physical body? 20 days left. The matchmaker system sniffled, as if wiping its tears. Su Jiaojia was curious, "What's your physical body like?" The matchmaker system said in a childish voice, "I don't know. Boss said that our physical bodies depend on the host's subconscious's favorite image." Su Jiaojiao, huh? Subconscious, then what was she thinking about? Su Jiaojiao was a little confused. The matchmaker system smiled fawningly, "Madam Host, I've leveled up and can do many things. I can even guide you to lose weight. It's absolutely scientific. I can also refine your body, Jiaojiao." As the two of them were talking, a voice interrupted. The matchmaker system hurriedly shut up. Su Jiaojiao looked over and saw Song Qinghan returning from outside. Spring came and went, and it was the beginning of summer. The sun was a little hot, but it was okay at home. Especially in the room, it was a little cool. Song Qinghan was sweating profusely. His skin, which had been nourished for a whole winter, had turned dark and was full of heat. Su Jiaojiao immediately took a towel and wiped his sweat. She asked, "Did everything go well today?" "Yes, it went very well." Song Qinghan smiled and said, "What are you thinking about?" The door to the room was open. Su Jiaojiao was sitting in front of the desk, deep in thought. She was even holding her face, so he immediately asked her. Su Jiaojiao remembered what she was worried about. She pinched her cheeks and said dejectedly, "I've gained weight." "Yes." Song Qinghan nodded. The corners of his lips curled up, and there was a smile in his voice. As long as he was facing her, he could always smile. Su Jiaojiao pursed her lips, "I want to lose weight. It's too ugly if I gain weight." Although her facial features had always been good, she was not ugly if she gained weight. On the contrary, her white skin made her look even cuter. However, her beauty value was bound to be reduced. Song Qinghan immediately shook his head, "You're not ugly. You're very beautiful." After saying that, he felt that it was not enough. He leaned over and hugged her, whispering, "I like it very much." Her body was chubby. Hugging her at night to sleep was like hugging a ball of fragrant cotton. It was very comfortable. Therefore, every night was the time he looked forward to the most. Especially now that there was no entertainment at night, many people did not want to go home to sleep. They were always outside chatting with their friends and brothers. Song Qinghan was always thinking about going home to hug his wife before the sky turned dark. The contrast was too obvious, and many people laughed at him for being henpecked. Su Jiaojiao's little round face blushed red. She pinched her stomach and said in grievance, "Last time, my mom thought that I was pregnant. Look at how fat my stomach is." She was not considered fat. According to weight, the difference was from 90 kilograms to 100 kilograms. However, because she was too lazy to move, there was an extra lump of meat on her lower abdomen. Occasionally, when her clothes were a little tight, it was easy to see. Coincidentally, Sun Feng saw it and thought that she was pregnant. The two of them did not tell their elders about the contraceptive. Su Jiaojiao could not explain how she knew about the contraceptive diet this time. Culinary skills could not be learned by fumbling around. She was given a lot of oil and salt. The contraceptive diet was not something that could be learned by fumbling around. Song Qinghan also cooperated and did not say anything. Su Jiaojiao suspected that he always knew all her secrets, but never said anything. She had asked Song Qinghan to take birth control pills after the two of them had officially gotten together. He had accepted it calmly and did not even ask her anything. She had been so worried that her heart had been lifted off her chest. Sometimes, when she was greedy, she would secretly eat snacks. Occasionally, there would be a smell in the room. He seemed to only silently open the windows to ventilate. Su Jiaojiao felt that he must have guessed it. However, she did not say anything, so he did not ask. In the face of his wife's complaints, Song Qinghan directly picked her up and let her sit in his arms. Then, he said gently, "You're really not fat. I really like it. But if you feel uncomfortable, you can go on a diet." If she was only worried about herself, Song Qinghan would not agree. However, he could still understand that she was afraid of others saying it. Su Jiaojiao looked at him with a smile. "Other than dieting, what else can I do?" "I'll take you to exercise," Song Qinghan said decisively. Su Jiaojiao's face immediately turned bitter. She did not like to exercise. However, when she thought about how she could receive a weight loss pill from this system after completing the mission, she knew that she would lose weight too quickly. She had to start losing weight quickly. This way, the abnormalities would not be obvious. Therefore, after a short hesitation, Su Jiaojiao nodded decisively. "Okay." Song Qinghan smiled. When Su Jiaojiao came back to her senses, she was already forced to lie on the bed and do sit-ups. The man who was guiding her pressed down on her feet seriously and said seriously, "If you feel that there is too much meat on your stomach, then this is the easiest way to lose the meat on your stomach. On the first day, do 50, and slowly increase the number." Su Jiaojiao hugged her head with both hands and was about to move. When she heard this, all the strength in her body dissipated. "I think you overestimate me." "Then 30? Song Qinghan asked hesitantly. When they first entered the military camp, the training started with 100. He also thought that there was a difference between men and women, so he reduced the number for her by half. Su Jiaojiao thought about it for a moment and accepted this number. Then, she struggled to use the strength in her waist and abdomen to get up. 1. Mwah. She was the first to successfully get up. As she was shouting the number, her lips were touched. Song Qinghan smiled gently. "A reward for you." Su Jiaojiao, who was the one giving who a reward, she rolled her eyes at Song Qinghan and continued to do the next one. After that, the two of them kissed each other for every one they did. When it was the 15th one, Su Jiaojiao could not handle it anymore. Even if she used the strength in her legs to push herself up, she did not have the strength. She struggled and waved her hands like a turtle whose shell was pressed down. When she finally got up, she panted and refused to lie down again. The sit-ups were simply too much. It had only been a few, but her abdominal muscles were already sore and weak. Su Jiaojiao was covered in sweat. She regretted, "I shouldn't have done sit-ups on the bed. I'm so sweaty. I'll have to wash the sheets later." "It's okay. I'll wash it," Song Qinghan said and patted her knee. "Continue." Su Jiaojiao looked at him anxiously. However, this man was cold and heartless. He did not compromise at all. "Hurry up." Su Jiaojiao felt wronged and did not want to move. "I'm still not breathing." Song Qinghan thought for a moment and leaned over. He pressed the back of her head and kissed her. After a while, he released her. Looking at her flushed face and panting more, he said softly, "Are you still breathing?" Su Jiaojiao. "You win." Poison Steps Under the Heavens recommends his other works to you. Please remember to collect the website or remember the website. Website, free copy, no theft, no theft, no theft, no theft, no theft. End of chapter 51. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the video to support the channel.